tight. Hold my baby squid, keep them out of sight. Talking about my life, government stay away. Watch me thrive, I'ma do it my own way. Squid in the ocean, swimming all alone. Ain't nobody telling me where to go. Living free, gotta stay true to myself. No need for interference from anyone else. Squid pro quo, that's the way to be. Living on my terms, setting myself free. Mama to my baby, protecting we might no government intrusion. I control my life.
Hey guys, I don't know why this is default. And there we go. How's everybody doing today? Oh, and getting us started off right. Hung Hero, thank you for the 10 gifted Squid Pro Quo memberships. I appreciate you so much. So much. So very, very much. All right, at least I know I'm not working for absolute free today. I hope everybody is doing well. Jeffrey, good to see you. La-di-da. Glad you made it. It always helps too when I post I post on Twitter and or the Discord. I'm glad I got, I'm glad I make a little bit easier for some people. Hi Timothy. I got $2, a biscuit, and a large cup of coffee. I'm ready. Glad to hear it. Janet, how are you? And I'm glad you're here today. I promise no trigger warnings or anything today, except for me getting angry over a judge trying to hide behind judicial immunity. I have done a little bit of investigating on that Beth Israel hospital before I record a video. And surprisingly, in the mainstream media, you can't really find shit. Shocker there. I can't really even find crap on this hospital on Joint Commission, other than the fact that they are an LVAD certified location, which I'm not really sure I would trust them with an LVAD placement, but that's just me. One time or another, I was LVAD certified, but that's neither here nor there. And yes, and Dad, how are you today? Oh, good to see you. Wonder if YouTube fixed whatever's wrong. Probably not. It works today. It won't work tomorrow. Flash fan, how is our favorite squid? Your favorite squid is right over there making a mess with Nutella toast and strawberries. So your favorite squid's over there. Your second favorite one is right here. So because I know that I have a small announcement to make, just a small one. Because I know that, let me bring this closer because I gotta whisper. Because I know that she won't see this, it has not been announced out loud yet, but because none of y'all know her, I'm going to be an aunt next year. Just in case you didn't hear that, I'm going to be an aunt next year. Shh, it's a secret. And Jeffrey, thank you for the $10 super chat. Help with Pacer funds or something else if the need arises. Happy to be here. Happy to help. Happy to be part of a great community. I love this community. This is the best community on YouTube. And I know everybody says that. But I think everybody else is not telling the truth. Just kidding. I feel like my I feel like mine's the best. I would like to say I don't get the vacation mode, but I'm usually asleep. Yeah, you sleep when you can. Hey, Mom, good to see you. Yeah, no healthcare nightmares today. Nope, we are doing part 2 of the Milwaukee Circuit Court judge that is hiding behind judicial immunity for, oh my goodness. Steven, you cracked me up. Oh my goodness. Oh, my cheeks hurt from that one. Yeah, I'm Mostream when you first announced it. Congrats. Yes, because none of y'all know her. Stephen is a bit thirsty. Yes, it's we keep asking the little I had to wake Mr. Squid up for that one last night because he was asleep and I was like, check your phone. Check your phone. Your brother has something to tell you. Check your phone. All right, getting into this. I believe we left off at, and I'm still not used to these. I like words. I don't like symbols. And on the bottom, all it has is a microphone, a video screen, a plus sign with a person. It's like all these symbols now. I like words, especially when I'm moving kind of quick. I like words. Everybody knows I'm not good with just, whoa. I'm not good with just figuring out symbols on a quickness. So this is the 37-page, magistrate report and order. So I did link the first video that we did in the description of this one. However, TLDR, she denied the motion to dismiss based on judicial immunity and gave us a lengthy, it could have been summed up in probably 2 paragraphs, but I appreciate sort of the education on the history of judicial immunity going all the way back to, I believe, 1607. Dugan's motion to dismiss be denied, and the request for leave to file amicus briefs are granted. There's 2 amicus briefs motions, one from a bunch of retired, crusty old judges on why she shouldn't be charged, and then one from a group called America or Freedom for America or something like that on why she should be charged or why they shouldn't take her motion to dismiss seriously. So there's the TLDR. We left off on page 17, so I'm gonna, or 15. We made it about halfway, roughly. 1.3, Dugan's arguments. All right, Dugan, circuit court judge from Milwaukee that let a alleged undocumented immigrant out of the side door or jury entrance out of her courtroom in effort to have him and his lawyer evade ICE officials that were waiting in the hallway. Oh, yeah. There's footnotes say I'll get to that one tomorrow. I will get it. The footnotes, yes, Belitho's footnotes are always an interesting experience. And for those of you who have, before we get started on this, have also mentioned to me about the Air India report and some videos about that, Spawn and I will be going over that Air India report tomorrow afternoon at 3:00. I will be doing my What the Hails video at about 1:30, and then the Air India report at 3. I have read it. I have thoughts. And sorry, I'm shifting around even more this morning because when I was at the gym, my foot started going numb. So I'm having a little bit of weird discomfort today. So we will get into that. But I do have the report. I have read it, and I have some other things. I also have a few other insights and thoughts, and I have thoughts. But you will hear those tomorrow. Dugan's arguments. Dugan argues that English law and subsequent American common law begins with the position of absolute judicial immunity, the most bullshit thing I've ever heard in my life. Save for very limited, specific, articulated exceptions, such as Congress statements in passing 242, She contends that without Congress similarly expressing an intent to abrogate the common law of judicial immunity for criminal prosecution of judges under Statute 1071 and 1505, it follows that she is immune from prosecution under those statutes. Guided by this history, Dugan contends that only 3 exceptions have been made which judges can be criminally prosecuted, none which applies to her case. First, she argues that a judge can be prosecuted for her wholly unofficial acts. Second, she argues that a judge can be prosecuted for criminal deprivation of a constitutional right under Statute 242. And third, she argues that a judge can be prosecuted if she conducts an official act, but the act is coupled with an ordinary crime for the pursuits of self-enrichment or self-gratification. I have the way the judge wrote that just screams to me that the judge has an attitude. And the fact, I think I would like this judge's attitude. So I'm very interested in where this where this judge takes this. I'm convinced that all judges in New England are corrupt. I'm researching this case from 1989, Maine Dennis DeChain, where DNA proved him innocent, but judge ruled the DNA technique was unreliable. I hate New England, everything. New England, with the exception of like Gabby. With the exception of Gabby. All other New England things can take a hike. But this is Eastern District of Wisconsin. This is a Milwaukee judge. So we shall see. 1.3.1 Common Law. Floyd is at the foundation of Dugan's arguments for the existence of absolute immunity to criminal prosecution for judicial acts. Floyd does pronounce such a rule. However, while the review of the history of judicial immunity supports that Lord Coke's pronouncements have taken root in American common law regarding judicial immunity in civil cases, and this was discussed in the first 14 pages of this motion. I'm sorry, Jeffrey. Sorry, didn't mean that. Yes, I like Jeffrey. Oh, few other exceptions. There are exceptions to every rule, but in general, New England can. There are exceptions to every rule, Jeffrey. And you are an exception to the rule. And I'm sure there are others. There are other people who are going to be like, I'm from New York. I'm from Boston. That I don't know about. So, but in general, New England, from their sports to their politics to their massholes and maniacs. Just checking out how to recall it. Oh boy. All right. American common law regarding judicial immunity in civil cases. The same cannot be said regarding criminal prosecutions. Didn't I remember saying that? Well, this is civil. This is civil. This is civil. I was like, where's the judge going with this? Judge Dugan is a Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge. She was handling a case with an individual for, I believe, some minor misdemeanor infraction. I'm not exactly sure what he was there for. However, there were 2 ICE agents in the hallway waiting for him, and the federal government is accusing her of obstruction, among other issues, because she let the person in question, along with his lawyer, leave through a side door in her courtroom, told them that they could not arrest him with an administrative warrant, and sent him to the chief judge's office knowing that the chief judge wasn't even there. So they are charging her with obstruction. So, and she's hiding behind her motion to dismiss was all about judicial immunity. And we all know how much I love judicial immunity. Hey, Adam, can leave New Hampshire and Maine out of that. My boss or my friend that owns a business that I work part-time for, he's from Maine. He refers to himself as a maniac, and he drives like it. He drives like it. And our other friend who works with us was like, it's a Yankee thing. I was like, I'm from Wisconsin and I don't drive like that. Oh, I heard of this judge. What a piece of work. Yeah. And because she is literally from my hometown, before I moved to Georgia, I lived in Milwaukee County. And if I would have gotten in trouble for any reason, I could have easily ended up in front of this judge. So we're going to embarrass her. Not like many people will see this. There's 22 people here. Share this out, because I don't know of anybody who's actually reading the documents. You hear a snippet. It was popular when she first got charged, and then you occasionally hear it on conservative media, but no one's really talking about it. And I like to talk about the things that were hot topics, but nobody talks about them anymore. It's like, no, we're going to we're going to continue to talk about it until the it's seen through, because this could set precedents for the rest of the country, and judicial immunity not being judicial immunity, not hiding and your shitty behavior being judicial immunity. So, and Tammy, thank you for being a member for 8 months. Derailment chat. I want your hair color pretty. Yeah, this is not. I'm not gonna lie. I pay for this. And hey, Living Life, how are you? And Malin, good evening, baby squid mods and chats. How are you? We are doing well. And Timothy said he just looked it up, misdemeanor battery. I knew it was something. I knew it was a misdemeanor. For some reason, I wanted to say DV, but I knew that was wrong. And to accuse someone of DV that hasn't been accused of DV officially is not something that I want to do. I couldn't believe this lady was a judge when I first heard about her. Yeah, and I'm so sick of activist judges. The point of being a judge is you're not supposed to be an activist. You're supposed to take the laws and interpret them according to the Constitution. That's it. Yeah. And oh yeah, there's that part too. Thank you, Jeffrey, for reminding me of that fact. She let him out in front of the victim to avoid ICE. Yes. There's that too. There's a whole bunch of BS, and I do have a couple other videos on this. If you want to know more details than I've gone into in this stream. As discussed above, the only time the Supreme Court has cited Floyd has been in support of judicial immunity in a civil case. I am not persuaded. I like her so far. I am not persuaded, therefore, that Floyd has taken root in American common law to shield judges from criminal prosecution for judicial acts, as Dugan asserts. Dugan cites to several more recent, i.e. 19th century, lower court cases where the context of a civil case against a judge, the court cited the general proposition that since common law, judges are exempt from a civil suit or indictment for any act done or omitted to be done by him as sitting as a judge. Hamilton v. Williams, 1855. Yates v. Lansing, New York Supreme Court, 1810. The doctrine which holds a judge exempt from a civil suit or indictment for any act done or omitted to be done by him sitting as a judge has a deep root in the common law. She also cites an 8th Circuit case from 2 years ago, Rocket v. Amy, 8th Circuit 2023, in which the court states that judicial immunity continues to apply today, not only in prosecutions like Floyd, but in civil rights actions brought under 42 U.S. Code 1983 as ID at 669. But again, these are not criminal cases. And the court's brief invocation of immunity from both civil suit and indictment provides weak support for the existence of a well-established principle of judicial immunity for judicial acts in a criminal case or criminal cases. I like this judge. A little wordy in my opinion, but I've really never seen a judge write a 37-page response to a motion to dismiss. So when I saw that, I'm like, we got to read this because 37 pages, she put thought into this. Because you don't write 37 pages and just, unless you're Bubbles, and just spew shit on a paper. Like, you have to put time and effort into this. This is not a one-page order that just says, you're denied, have a nice day. Like, she put thought into this. Dugan further cites several 20th century cases that she again argues advances of the concept that judges are immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts not involving constitutional rights. These cases, however, are similarly unconvincing. She cites Com v. Tartar, Kentucky, 1951, a case addressing whether a judge is criminally immune for conducting malfeasance in office. The court in Tartar concluded that misfeasance of a judicial officer acting in his official capacity did not constitute a criminal offense under the common law. Malfeasance or misfeasance in office, which some states make criminal by either statute or common law rule, precludes criminal liability by judicial immunity unless the malfeasance or misfeasance is accompanied by bad faith. And I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah, 37 pages of criminal is not civil now. Sit down, shut up, and let's go to trial. Yeah. I mean, I've never seen, be it, when I say I've never seen, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So let's not, I know there's always someone in the comments that's like, well, you've never seen this, or you didn't say this, or in my opinion of the documents and the cases that I've looked at, I've never seen a judge write a 37-page response to a motion to dismiss. Not even Judge Belythe, though, when he decides to be wordy, writes 37 pages. But Dugan is not charged under a state statute or common law prohibition on malfeasance or misfeasance in office. She is charged under federal criminal statute for general offenses not related to malfeasance or misfeasance in office. And I'm sure this is the thing about her hiding behind judicial immunity. I'm sure that if anybody in that courthouse would have done the same thing, they would have been charged with the same thing. I know that sounds like mind blown simple, but if a secretary would have said, hey, hide behind my desk, she sent the ICE agents off to the chief judge's office knowing that he wasn't there, they probably would have been charged with the same shit. And guess what? They don't have judicial immunity to hide behind, so why does she get it? That's where, like I said, not a lawyer, not even a paralegal, but my common sense would tell me telling someone they can leave through a side door and going out of my way, out of my courtroom, because she was not in her courtroom at the time. When she approached these ICE agents in the hallway, she was not in her courtroom. Going out of your courtroom to approach people and get in their way is not a judicial act. Just a thought. Lawyer Squid versus Bubbles. Get your ringside seat. Oh. And hey, Amos girl, how are you? Off topic. Sorry, now that LMNOP has put down a motion regarding her lawyer wanting to sign papers and money, blah, blah, blah. We'll have to discuss that tomorrow because I don't really know. Anything that came out yesterday, I really wasn't paying attention. Yeah, even Judge Grudge didn't get that bad. Judge Grudge at least stayed in his damn courtroom. Like, let's be honest here. At least he stayed in his damn courtroom. Like, we're just going to discuss that. Thus, Tartar is an opposite. Dugan also cites U.S. v. Chaplin, Southern District of California, 1944, in support of her argument. In Chaplin, a judge was indicted for criminal conspiracy to deprive civil rights in violation of a precursor to 18 U.S. Code 242. The court concluded that the judge was criminally immune because he was acting within the scope of his judicial duties. While the court acknowledged the Supreme Court's holding in Ex parte Virginia, it distinguished the case based on the fact that Ex parte Virginia judge was performing a ministerial rather than judicial act in selecting jurors. While the Ex parte Virginia court did find the judge was conducting a ministerial act, the court also stated that even if the selection of jurors could be considered a judicial act, the judge had no authority to exclude jurors on the basis of their race. Furthermore, to the extent any doubt remained after Ex parte Virginia whether judges could be prosecuted for criminal deprivation of constitutional rights, all doubt was removed by the Supreme Court's subsequent pronouncements in O'Shea, Imbler, and Dennis. In short, I am unconvinced. In short, after we're on page 18. In short, hey, Rickles. LOL, I imagine Lawyer Squid would be like that lawyer that cross-examined Amber Heard. Did you really just compare me to, oh my goodness, what is her name? I'm having a brain fart. Camille Vasquez? You really just I'm honored. Like, damn. Administrative orders like allowing someone to use the jury exit aren't protected. I just don't like how she's hiding behind judicial immunity when if her secretary or her legal assistant or her clerk would have done it, they wouldn't have judicial immunity to hide behind. So it's like all it takes is a black robe and a title, and all of a sudden you are immune to this. It's like, no, that's not how that shit works. Like, no. Flash fan just compared me to Camille Vasquez. Camille Vasquez is freaking amazing. If you've like Jeffrey, like we talked about this morning when you told me about Runkle of the Bailey, and I was like, I might be new to having a channel a year and 3 or 4 months now, but like I've watched LawTube since Rittenhouse. So I've known about Runkle since, at a bare minimum, Johnny Depp. Maybe earlier than that. I really can't. My mind gets all screwed up with timelines, but at a very, very, very bare minimum, Johnny Depp. So like, just like I didn't know who Jeremy Hales was before he was on Megan's channel back. The first time he was on Megan's channel, I was sitting in the Walmart parking lot waiting for my pickup order. So it's amazing what I can remember, and then I can't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. So it's one of those things of like, just like I didn't know who Jeremy Hales was before he was on Megan's, is the same. It's like just the opposite with like LawTubers. I know who a lot of lawyers are because I watched them for a long time. I don't watch a lot of them now because I just don't have the time. But I know who they are. Hey, Sir Frank. I'm immune just because I'm an otter as long as I don't bite someone that is a death sentence. I am good. How are you? But to be compared to Camille Vasquez is that is like the ultimate compliment to me. That is like, she's not only smart and she's smart, she's witty, she's beautiful. That's like, you know, and she's an excellent lawyer on top of that. All right, getting back to this now that I derailed myself. In short, I'm unconvinced that these cases established settled law on judicial immunity from criminal prosecutions related to official judicial acts as exists in the context of civil lawsuit for monetary damages. Camille Vasquez was the only one who cross-examined Amber Heard. I remember that specifically. So I remember that specifically. That's if you watch Johnny Depp, you know exactly who cross-examined Amber Heard because it was fire. It was one of the cross-examinations that you will not forget because it embarrassed Amber Heard. All right, Dugan's argument. Dugan's 242 argument. Dugan contends that without Congress expressing an intent to abrogate the common law of judicial immunity for criminal prosecution of judges under statutes 1071 and 1505, as it did for prosecutions under statute 242, it follows that she is immune from prosecution under those statutes. This argument assumes, you know what happens when you assume, the truth of two underlying premises. One, that judicial immunity from criminal prosecution is established in American common law. And two, that Statute 242 is an exemption to that rule. As discussed above, the case for common law judicial immunity in criminal cases rests on Floyd, and Floyd has only been cited by the Supreme Court in civil cases. Thus, there is weak evidence for the existence of a common law judicial immunity from criminal prosecution for official judicial acts. Moreover, arguing that the lack of judicial immunity from prosecution for a violation of Statute 242 establishes that judges are immune from criminal prosecution under every other criminal statute overlooks the specific historical context in which Statute 242 was passed. And as the government argues, must Congress comb through every federal criminal statute to indicate which statutes apply to judges and which do not? I am unconvinced that the absence of judicial immunity for violations of Statute 242 establishes that judges are immune for judicial acts under all other criminal statutes. I really like this judge. She's not taking Dugan's crap just because she's a judge, which I was actually worried about. I was really worried about the fact that it was another Milwaukee judge. Even though she's a federal judge, they're still from the same damn town. Also, another female judge. No offense, but being female, I have a very not anti-feminist way of looking at it, but like an anti-feminist way of looking at it. Like, I don't have faith in women in some leadership positions because bitches are emotional. And in some positions, you do not need emotion to get in the way of you doing your job. Let's be honest here. This judge, because at least Darrow talked too much, but at least Darrow did her job. This judge literally broke the law and is trying to hide behind hide behind judicial immunity. Darrow never needed to. Was she using that case to advance her career? Yes. However, the people of Wisconsin spoke when she tried to run for state Supreme Court and said no. So there's that. Define feminism. There's today's definition and the one used 50 to 100 years ago. I am all for the 50 to 100 years ago definition. Letting women being equal. But I am all for equal rights, not putting women on a pedestal because they're a woman. I am not for special treatment of anybody based on the what they're packing between their legs. No. No one should get special treatment based on their DNA. I am not for, or who they sleep with, for that matter. Like, I'm for equal treatment, not special treatment. There's a difference. So, this judge, and I have no idea how this judge, how Judge Dugan is actually as a judge. I have not seen any cases of how she actually is as a judge in fairness with cases she's actually tried. However, she seems to be an activist when it comes to her personal endeavors. And then she uses her personal endeavors to hide behind the fact that she's a judge, which I don't. So I don't know how she is as an acting judge. I have absolutely no idea. Do I think some of her cases should be looked at because of what she did here? If she's convicted of this, I believe every defendant that she's convicted or that has been convicted in her courtroom has a right to appeal based on, and I'm sure there is some precedent and legal standard for it. I don't know what it is because, once again, never claimed to be a lawyer. However, and hey, Calvin, how are you today? I believe that I believe that if she is convicted here, that every person who's been convicted in her courtroom has a right to appeal their case. Because I don't know how she is as a judge, but based on her personal behavior, I can't imagine. Because usually, not always, but generally, when you're a shitty person in your personal life, you're shitty at your job too. That doesn't always, it's not always true. But generally speaking, if you're a shitty human being in your personal life and you treat people like crap in your personal life and you don't follow laws in your personal life, there's going to be a time and a place where you don't follow laws in your professional life too. They do automatically. See, and that's one of the things. I don't claim to be a legal scholar. I just think logically. And sometimes logic works with the law and sometimes it doesn't. I could identify as an invisible penguin. That doesn't mean I'm an invisible penguin, or at least that's what Fred, my invisible penguin, says. Do you have an invisible friend? All right. Alrighty. Dugan's 3 exceptions to judicial immunity. Again, Dugan asserts that there are only 3 categories of cases for which judges are not immune from criminal prosecution. First, a judge can be prosecuted for his wholly unofficial acts. Second, a judge can be prosecuted for criminal deprivation of a constitutional right under 242. And third, a judge can be prosecuted if he conducts an official act, but the act is coupled with an ordinary crime for the pursuit of self-enrichment or self-gratification. Judge Dugan's cases that weren't taken before a trier of fact but dismissed might be subject to being reheard for the prosecutor. Possibly. I mean, and you're one of my go-to people for actual law because you know more than me. I just try to think logically and be like, if she gets convicted, then some people that, there's got to be a statute somewhere in Wisconsin. I'm not sure what it is, but there's got to be something that says if my judge is convicted of a crime, she might have fucked up my case. The first category, wholly unofficial acts, does not merit discussion. We're not even going to talk about it. The parties do not dispute that judges are not immune from prosecution for criminal acts wholly unrelated to their official duties, like the judges that get arrested for DUI. Dugan cites as an example a state court judge in California who was recently convicted of unaliving his wife as they watched television at home. The hell was he watching? No one contends that this judge could reasonably invoke judicial immunity as a defense in that case. Well, at least we're all on that page. Dugan's second category, criminal deprivation of constitutional rights under 242, is discussed in depth above. Dugan is not charged under 242 and agrees that judges are not immune from prosecution under 242. Thus, I will not address this category further. Thank God. That saved us 10 pages. Sorry, I like this judge, but she is wordy. She makes me look like I don't talk at all. Makes me look like a mute. Dugan's third category of cases where judges are prosecuted for actions related to their duties as judges, but are coupled with self-serving criminal activities such as accepting bribes or kickbacks, warrants further discussion. Dugan argues that these cases are distinguishable from other crimes for immunity purposes because of their self-serving nature. She contends that in contrast, she was acting selflessly. Would you believe that people are still saying Judge Cranick was not fair? Oh my God, Judge Cranick. Anybody had to deal with Sarah Boone? Holy crap. Flash fan, did you happen to watch the video I sent you yesterday about Sarah Boone? Sarah Boone is claiming, TLDR, Sarah Boone is claiming her appellate lawyer is ghosting her. The people on Court TV or Long Crime or whatever video I saw and sent Flash fan last night were laughing at her. And hey, Daniel, how are you? Afternoon. Oh, I've never told you how much I love that avatar. That's a good Muppet. My Muppets never turned out. Like, oh, this just makes me laugh. She contends that in contrast, where's my pearls? I need to clutch them. I need to be a good Southern woman and clutch my pearls. My Muppet is awesome sauce. Yes, it is. My Muppets never turned out. My Muppets, I don't know. Like, I need to clutch my pearls. I was acting selflessly with no hint of self-dealing. Yeah, I like the Fraggle too. Nothing of mine turned out. Like, I don't know. AI images and me don't get along. She could have stopped at non-judicial acts by noting the acts were not conducted as a part of court proceedings in progress, thus are non-judicial acts. You did not. You did not. Oh, that's blasphemous. Yeah, hence, you made it. Words are important. The ones I made didn't turn out. I never said the ones people made for me didn't turn out. I just said the ones I made didn't turn out. Words are important. Like, words are important. But whether a judge seeks his own self-gratification or self-enrichment is not the distinguishing feature for immunity. What matters is whether the judge, even in performing her official duties, is accused of committing a crime. Take, for example, the infamous Kids for Cash scheme in which two Pennsylvania judges Michael Conahan and Mark Ciavarella accepted kickbacks, Freudian slip, kickbacks for sending juveniles to particular private detention centers. Yeah, that was shitty on so many levels. Like, this is what I hate. Private anything. Private jails, detention centers, they all suck for reasons such as this. Plus, they're hard to track. And when people get lost in the system, like, I don't know, I had a friend whose brother got lost in the Wisconsin State Department of Corrections. They couldn't find him for like 2 weeks. He got moved and no one knew where they moved him to. Wallace v. Powell, Middle District of Pennsylvania, November 20th, 2009. These judges were alleged to have used their influence as judicial officers to select the Pennsylvania Child Care and Western Pennsylvania Child Care as detention facilities and intentionally filled those facilities with juveniles to earn their co-conspirators excessive profits. I don't think anybody should have a for-profit jail. Judges Conahan and Ciavarella were paid approximately $2.6 million for their influence. Poor Marine. How are you? Conahan was specifically alleged to have done, amongst other things, removing funding from the Luzerne County budget from the Luzerne County facility, sign a secret placement guarantee agreement with the Pennsylvania Child Care on behalf of Luzerne County, and grant an injunction which prevented the results of an audit of the Pennsylvania Child Care facility from being disclosed to the public. Ciavarella was alleged to have sentenced thousands of juveniles to detention in violation of their constitutional rights. Both judges deserve Snake Island. Hey, General T. I have thoughts. I know this was a long time ago, but I have thoughts. I heard about this, but I was young. I was like 23 at the time, so like it didn't really, I was in college, actually I had just gotten out of the military at this time. So I wasn't even in college yet. Things weren't really sinking in like they do now. Both judges allegedly pressured court probation officers to make recommendations in favor of incarcerating juvenile offenders, concealing their unlawful proceeds, and failed to disclose their financial relationships with the other defendants. The judges were civilly sued under Statute 1983 for their actions. The court, considering the Supreme Court's jurisprudence on judicial immunity to date, found that the judges have absolute immunity for conduct pursuant to their role as judicial officers. The court determined that judicial immunity applies if a judge has jurisdiction over the dispute and conducted a judicial act, opposed to an administrative, executive, or legislative one. The plaintiffs argued that because the judge's decisions were made corruptly or in predetermined fashion, they were not judicial acts. The court disagreed, stating, for example, that the allegation that Conahan had corrupt motive for issuing an injunction was no different than the allegations against the judge in Dennis, where the Supreme Court found judicial immunity. The court stated that Ciavarella's determinations of delinquency and sentences imposed were judicial acts. And this is where I hate judicial immunity. Judicial immunity blows. When you're taking a kickback, you're not acting. Oh my God. It's like, it makes you want to like beat your head up against a wall or beat somebody else's head up against a wall in Minecraft. I went through it. Some of the kids I busted for petty stuff got screwed by these two assholes. And I can't imagine, as the person who busted them, that you feel good about it. Like, not trying to, you know where I'm going with that. Like, and I'm not trying to make you feel guilty by any means, but like, you think you're doing a good thing, and they go in front of judges that effed them over, And it's like what should have been something minor and something they learned from screwed them over for a long time. And yeah, when it's like that's never the intention. And here they are making money and then hiding behind judicial immunity. Yeah, I have to. That's the next thing I have to do. I have to get back into court stuff, CASIP stuff. All CASIP's federal stuff is sealed. National security issues. And the fact that they were made corruptly or with malice was irrelevant. If anything is corrupt or with malice, because I can understand judges make mistakes. Judges are people. Shit happens. Sometimes you make mistakes. I get that. And that should be where judicial immunity is like, okay, you made a mistake. No, yeah, but you have to go get them. And I need somebody to go to Waukesha County Courthouse and get them for me. I'm just 1,030 miles from Waukesha County Courthouse. Maybe I can convince my father to go. Just maybe. However, to the extent the judge's actions were not judicial in nature, such as Conahan's signing of a placement agreement or the budget request, judicial immunity did not shield this conduct. The court acknowledged that because of judicial immunity, Ciavarella would escape civil liability for the vast majority of his conduct, no matter how corrupt. The court also stated, however, citing O'Shea, that the judges were still subject to criminal prosecution, noting that the judges here have been indicted by a federal grand jury for the conduct which damages are sought in this case. And Judges Conahan and Ciavarella were indeed indicted under federal racketeering laws. See Indictment Docket 1, United States v. Conahan, Middle District of Pennsylvania, 2009. What the Kids for Cash case shows is that while judges may be civilly immune for judicial acts, regardless of their motives, it does not follow that they are also criminally immune for their wholly judicial acts. Recall, the court found that Ciavarella's determinations of delinquency and sentences were clearly judicial acts, and while judicial immunity shielded him from civil liability, it did not protect him from criminal prosecution for the same acts. Dugan cites U.S. v. Claiborne, 9th Circuit, 1984, as a close call regarding whether a judge is truly conducting wholly official acts in the context of criminal immunity. In Claiborne, a federal judge was indicted for soliciting and receiving $30,000 from a Nevada brothel owner in return for being influenced in the performance of official acts, specifically decisions regarding motions in a pending case. The judge was further accused of accepting money from the same individual in return for promising to secure the reversal of his criminal tax evasion conduct by bribing one or more of the judges in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Oh, the Ninth Circuit. In finding the judge was not immune from criminal prosecution, the court stated, the Constitution does not immunize a sitting federal judge from the process of criminal law. The court rejected the argument that judicial independence would be diminished by subjecting judges to criminal prosecution. The court found that judges enjoy the same protection as ordinary citizens from vindictive prosecution, and that criminal prosecution encounters several procedural barriers, such as the indictment, burden of proof, and presumption of innocence. The court further concluded that criminal conduct is not part of the necessary functions performed by public officials, and punishment for such conduct would not interfere with the operation of a branch of government. Rather, it can be scarcely doubted that the citizenry would justifiably lose respect for and confidence in a system of government in which judges were apparently held to be above the process of the criminal law. Which here, but okay. Take a step back for a second and say hi to Spawn Trooper. doing something, mention money and a brothel in the same sentence. It's legal in Nevada. There's a lot of shit that's legal in Nevada that's not legal everywhere else. You can go to the bunny ranch outside of Fallon. There's a naval air station in Fallon. There's a bunny ranch not too far from the base. Completely legal. Completely legal. However, Spawn, this judge does bring up English law from going all the way back to 1607. Only in one county, not only in one county. Fallon is up near Reno. So it's not just in one county. More than one county. It's weird that I have Spawn, General T, and Poor Marine all in one stream. What is going on and what lottery did I win today? Dugan argues that in Claiborne, the judge, despite conducting the judicial acts of handling motions, sold his office. While true, this fact does not make Claiborne a close call as to whether immunity would apply. Rather, Claiborne reiterates that accepted principle that even when performing clearly judicial acts, such as deciding motions in a pending case, a judge is not immune from criminal prosecution for committing crimes while conducting the judicial act. Oh, there's the $1 million statement. A judge is not immune from criminal prosecution for committing crimes while conducting the judicial act. That right there sealed this judge's fate in this magistrate's eyes. Just saying. Naval Air Station. Still funny they never got the forces to all work together, and the pilots are in the Air Force, sailors in the Naval Police. No. The pilots are in the Navy. Actually, some pilots are in the Marines. So it's not just. Nope. It's the pilots. Most of the pilots are our pilots were in the Navy anyway. While many of these cases involve crimes where the judge's motivation was financial gain, it does not follow, and there is no authority for the proposition that criminal prosecution is limited to such cases. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, and the Army. Yeah, them too. One second, I need her to turn the volume. She just puts her pad on. I tell her to turn the volume down, and she just turns puts her iPad underneath the pillow so she can still listen to her music as loud as she wants, but it's quieter for me. Make it make sense. Apparently, Jeffrey, you never watched Top Gun the movie. She ain't the president. Yeah, there's that too. Yeah, but this is where the TDS comes out. Dugan's reliance on Trump v. U.S. Finally, Dugan cites to the Supreme Court's recent decision in Trump v. U.S., where the court found the president absolutely immune for criminal prosecution for conduct within his exclusive sphere of constitutional authority. While acknowledging that Trump was addressing immunity in the context of the president, Dugan argues that the court indirectly addresses judicial immunity because, in her view, Trump's pronouncement of presidential immunity is grounded in the proposition that judges have absolute immunity in criminal cases for judicial acts. I saw that. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through this as fast as possible, but like they 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 do work together. It's just at a much higher level than like everyday training and missions. They do work together. They do. Trust me, they do. Um they I have to go personally turn her iPad down a little bit. I'll be right back. Thank you all for your patience. I appreciate that. Um, I just had to also wipe some Nutella off the. Yeah, she had Nutella toast, and I had to wipe some Nutella off the nose and the fingers. Uh, I I want to know what Trump thinks of Cassoap. Yeah, um, yeah, I really want to know what Trump thinks of Cassoap. But that's another thing we will never know unless someone can secure me an interview. Because I don't actually think that anybody has ever asked. I have never seen in an interview, whether it be a physical interview with Trump, a question from anybody in the White House press corps, or a interview or a article that's been typed up in any publication where anybody's actually asked him if he's heard of it. He might not even this might be have been caught so soon that he might not even have ever heard of it. But I'm curious. Huh. All right. In Trump, like here, the parties did not dispute that criminal immunity does not apply to a president's unofficial acts. As to official acts, however, in arguing the president is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for acts within the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities, President Trump looked to Nixon v. Fitzgerald, a civil case in which the court concluded that in view of the special nature of the president's constitutional office and functions, we think it's appropriate to recognize the absolute presidential immunity from damages liability for acts within the outer perimeter of his official responsibility. Trump argued that given the court's pronouncement in Fitzgerald regarding civil immunity for acts on the outer perimeter, he must be absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for such acts as well. The court agreed, finding that the nature of presidential power requires that a former president have some immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts during his tenure in office. With respect to the exercise of his core constitutional powers, the immunity must be absolute. As to non-core official actions falling within the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities, the court concluded that the president has at least a presumptive immunity from criminal prosecutions. Well, here's the thing. He might not be such a great example as like a president, what to do and what not to do. But when it comes to the prosecution and the whole Watergate thing, it's excellent case law. And it provides a very, very good precedent for other people to use. So as a person, yeah, not the greatest example, but as case law, case law, not a bad argument. And when you look at case law, you're not looking at the personalities of the people involved. You're looking at the decisions of the people and the decisions of the court. So you got to do what you got to do to get by. Ugh. Ugh. Mhm. Sorry. Allergies are really driving me nuts today. As to non-core official acts falling within the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities, the court concluded that the president has at least a presumptive immunity from criminal prosecutions. The court found that the government can overcome this presumption by showing that applying a criminal prohibition to the act would pose no dangers of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch. In coming to this conclusion, the court reiterated that the president is not above the law, and neither is a Milwaukee Circuit Court judge or Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge. Not complaining, first time in decades our Treasury Department has a surplus. Yeah, I need to do a meme review because I've seen a whole bunch of stuff like CNBC stating back in April that like the tariffs aren't going to do what they think they're going to do, or what Trump thinks they're going to do, and then like in June making a completely separate argument of the what was it? Tariffs have a completely like I have to look at the tariffs will likely raise much less money than White House projects, economists say. April 1st. July 11th. Treasury posts unexpected surplus in June as tariff receipts surge. And you know the way to get around tariffs? Buy American. Create jobs here. Produce shit here. No tariffs. That's the whole fucking point. Create jobs here. But, yeah. In coming to this conclusion, the court reiterated that the president is not above the law. The president is charged with enforcing federal criminal laws, is not above them. However, the court also found that it had to balance two competing interests: the president's ability to execute the duties of his office fearlessly and fairly, and the fact that federal criminal law seeks to redress a wrong to the public as a whole, not just to an individual. In finding this balance, the court concluded that separation of powers principles necessitate the president having absolute immunity for core constitutional powers, at least as a presumptive immunity for all official acts. Dugan argues that because the Trump decision repeatedly relied on Fitzgerald, and because Fitzgerald was rooted in cases applying absolute judicial immunity, the three words that I hate being in the same sentence together. It follows that Trump, in fact, simply clarified that the president is entitled to the same immunity from prosecution for official conduct that judges have long held. While Dugan asserts that Trump simply extended to the president the same immunity from prosecution that judges have already had, this argument makes a leap too far. Trump says nothing about criminal immunity for judicial acts. And in Fitzgerald, while the Supreme Court looked to the historical jurisprudence regarding civil judicial immunity, the court was clear that the grant of absolute immunity for civil damages for outer perimeter acts of the president was due to the special nature of the president's constitutional office and functions. Similarly, in Trump, the court noted that the president occupies a unique position in the constitutional scheme as the only person who alone composes a branch of government. Technically, according to the Constitution, the president is the only person in the in the executive branch. Even so, absolute criminal immunity exists only for a president's core constitutional powers. meaning those powers specifically articulated in the Constitution, such as the power to pardon and the power to veto. In those limited cases, because of the separation of powers, that a president's motive cannot be considered. Thus, even if a president is accused of taking a bribe to grant a pardon, Biden, because a pardon is a core power given to the president by the Constitution, unless it's by auto pen, it would violate the separation of powers for the judicial branch to question it. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face. I tried. However, for the non-core powers, the Supreme Court did not grant the president blanket immunity. Instead, saying these acts are only presumptively immune, and this immunity could be overcome by showing that criminal prohibition posed no dangers of intrusion on the separation of powers. Perhaps in some future case, the Supreme Court will expand the judicial immunity principles it has so firmly established in the civil context to the criminal prosecution of judges as Dugan urges. God, I hope not. At this time, however, I am unconvinced that either the common law or the Trump decision provide the authority for applying the civil framework of absolute judicial immunity for judicial acts to the prosecution of judges for crimes that relate to official duties. Auto pen is the fourth branch. Oh my God. I need an auto pen. Yeah. I need an auto tune sometimes too. Here's the thing. My problem with judicial immunity being taken away is here's the problem with judicial immunity and being taken away. Who has the power to take away judicial immunity? Supreme Court. Do you really think the courts are going to take away their own damn judicial immunity? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Come on, man. Push-ups, man. Well, Paul, I'm glad you're here. Summary of the existing law on judicial immunity. Here we go. Another history lesson. Summarizing the last 25 pages. Having reviewed the law on judicial immunity in both civil and criminal contexts, and having considered the parties' arguments on the existing precedent, the applicable law can be summarized as follows. In the civil context, it is well established and undisputed that judges have absolute immunity from civil lawsuits for monetary damages when engaging in judicial acts. While it's not always crystal clear what constitutes a judicial act, the Supreme Court counsels courts to consider whether the act is a function normally performed by a judge and whether the parties dealt with the judge in his judicial capacity. See Stump 435 U.S. at 362. The court has stated there is an intelligible distinction between judicial acts and the administrative, legislative, or executive functions that judges may on occasion be assigned by law to perform. The court has articulated that judicial immunity is not overcome by allegations of bad faith or malice. This is my big problem. Bad faith and malice should... See ya, Calvin. Somebody else said bye, too. Bad faith and malice should automatically take your judicial immunity away. In the criminal context, review of the case law supports the following. First, judges are not immune from criminal prosecution for acts wholly outside their official roles as judges. Dugan cites several examples that fit into this category, such as a state court judge who convicted of unaliving his wife as they watched TV at home, and a state court judge who is convicted of smexy-time battery of a female lawyer in his chambers. Second, judges are not immune from prosecution for the criminal deprivation of constitutional rights under 18 U.S. Code 242. And third, judges are not shielded by judicial immunity from criminal prosecution for acts, though related to official duties, are in violation of criminal law. See Claiborne and Wallace v. Powell. Application of judicial immunity to the allegations in the indictment. Hey, King Bob, how are you today? Applying the principles above, does judicial immunity shield Dugan from prosecution because the indictment alleges he violated federal criminal law while performing judicial duties? The answer is no. As discussed above, there is no firmly established absolute judicial immunity barring criminal prosecution of judges for judicial acts. Other than the 17th century English case, Spawn Trooper, if you're still here, we got the 1607 case of Floyd. The United States Supreme Court has only applied the concept of judicial immunity for judicial acts in civil cases. Even before the lower courts, with the exception of the single malfeasance in office case cited by Dugan, the cases Dugan cites in support of her argument arise in the civil context. Further, the category of cases where judges were prosecuted for conduct performed in their official role also answers this question in the negative. For example, the Kids for Cash scheme described above, sentencing juveniles is indisputably within the scope of a judge's official duties. Thus, the Wallace Court found the judges immune from civil suit. The judges were still, however, prosecuted criminally because even though judges were performing official duties, their otherwise criminal conduct did not shield them from prosecution. Oh, a nice new case. This technically isn't a new case, but it's just finally being updated. We are doing better than yesterday. As discussed earlier, Dugan tries to distinguish her case by arguing that the charged acts are devoid of self-enrichment or self-gratification. That marks the earlier cases in which judges were convicted for using judicial status as leverage or opportunity for a bribe, kickback, or favor to commit another crime. I'm sorry, the self-gratification of knowing that you... How do I put this? It's not so much that you're receiving anything for doing what these judges and these mayors and these people are doing. It's the self-gratification of giving the middle finger to the federal government. That's this. I've learned that there's no arguing and there's no debating someone who can't understand basic facts. Yes, right here. They just wanted to give the middle finger to the president. Their TDS is so beyond, like they're now putting criminals and people who... I am all for legal immigration. Legal being the key word. You want to come here, you want to do it right. But people skipping the line and you putting people who skipped the line and ahead of people who actually put in the work and waited their turn and put in the time and effort to become legal citizens, I have a problem with. And I had patients that were illegal immigrants. I did. You didn't acknowledge it, but you knew. You knew. I had no problem working with them. They're still people too. However, they're breaking the law by being here. And to admit anything else or to try to convince people of anything else is not right. Legal is good, legal is fair. Legal is still fucking unfair. I'm not going to lie. Legal is still difficult. But instead of breaking the law and these politicians letting people break the law, how about you fucking politicians do your damn jobs and make the laws better? Make the process easier. But instead of making the process easier, you're just saying, well, F the law, but you're in Congress. Your ass is supposed to change the law. How about you write new immigration laws? Like jail reform, prison reform. instead of letting people out of prison early, how about you change the sentencing laws? And how about you change things? You change the laws instead of not following the law as written. How about you do your damn jobs and follow and change the fucking law? That's what you're there for. But, that's too much to ask. Yeah. Ugh. There's a case going on in Washington State that involves maybe people being here illegally. I don't think those people are if it's Washington versus the Muslim couple. I think they're here legally. I think they're just assholes. There's a case right now in Washington, and Flashman, this may or may not be the case that you're talking about, but there's a case going on right now where two parents are accused of attempted honor killing of their child. Their 17-year-old daughter, they tried to arrange a marriage, and she said no. So in broad daylight, while she was waiting for the bus, her dad tried to beat her. Yeah. Her dad tried to unalive her in the middle of the street. The bus driver saved her life and a couple of her friends. But from what I was reading or listening to last night, I was listening to opening statements yesterday, and a couple of the bus driver's statements, and apparently one of the other kids tried to stop the dad from doing anything, and he hit him and knocked him to the ground. So, yeah. Yeah, this is they're more worried about getting rid of Trump than doing their real job. Could you imagine? It's another one of those misplaced and misguided energies. If all these people who put all this energy into like hating Trump put their energy into some positive shit, where would this world be? Could you imagine where this world would be if people put their energy into positive shit? Like if certain people on the haters put their energy into positive shit, what they could accomplish? People that troll, if you put your energy into positive shit, what you could accomplish? Like people spend so much energy hating other people. It's like, who has the fucking time to do that? Ain't got that much time on my hands. Like, I'm going straight from here. I have stuff to do around the house, and I have to go to work. Like, all right. Again, the distinction that takes these official duty cases out of the shield of immunity is not self-enrichment or the motive of the judge. It's whether the criminal law has been violated. In other words, a judge's actions, even when done in her official capacity, does not bar criminal prosecution if the actions were done in violation of criminal law. Oh, I had good intentions when I was speeding. I was just trying to get somewhere faster. I was still speeding. I still broke the damn law. Furthermore, considering the only case with similar allegations to this case in U.S. v. Joseph, a judge on the Massachusetts District Court, Judge Shelley Richmond Joseph, was similar to Dugan here, federally charged with obstruction of justice and obstruction of federal proceedings in violation of 1512 and 1505. In that case, an ICE officer working for the Department of Homeland Security arrived at the courthouse to take into custody an individual who had been arrested days earlier, who was allegedly the subject of an immigration detainer and a warrant based on a final order of removal. U.S. v. Richmond Joseph, District of Massachusetts, July 27th, 2020. Interesting. The DHS intended to detain the individual and effect his removal from the U.S. in the event he was released from state custody. Joseph allegedly facilitated this individual's departure from the courthouse using the rear sally port door of the lockup on the courthouse's lower level, rather than through the main door leading from the courtroom to the lobby where the ICE officer was waiting. I had no idea about that other case. Have you ever heard about that other case? Joseph moved to dismiss the indictment on judicial immunity grounds, and the parties hotly contested whether judicial immunity insulates against criminal liability or was restricted to civil lawsuits. Oh, Judge Dugan failed to bring up that case in any of her case law. I wonder why. And hey, Heather. The district court declined to resolve the question, finding that even if judicial immunity did extend to the criminal context, it would apply only where a judge performed judicial acts within her jurisdiction. And in this case, the indictment alleged that Joseph acted corruptly, and such immunity, to extent it exists, does not shield corruption or bribery. The court concluded that it was not within this court's province on a motion to dismiss to determine whether judicial immunity, even if its reach encompasses criminal liability, provides a viable shelter for Joseph in the circumstances alleged here. Footnote 1. The indictment here, as in Joseph, alleges that Dugan acted corruptly. And as the Joseph court found, to the extent immunity exists in the criminal context, it does not shield against corruption. In my view, this is consistent with the cases where judges were prosecuted for performing official acts that were intertwined with bribery or extortion, even where judges are acting in their official role. When the judicial acts violate criminal law, judicial immunity does not bar prosecution. I agree with Dugan and the amicus brief of the former judges that a judge plays many roles when sitting on the bench in a courtroom. She must not only interpret and apply the law to the facts, she must also ensure the efficient running of her courtroom. Thus, I agree that determining whether a warrant establishes probable cause, directing people outside of her courtroom to talk with the chief judge about a planned arrest, addressing the case off the record, telling people in her courtroom what door to use or re-enter the public hallway, and allowing a party to appear by Zoom are all part of a judge's job. I also agree with Dugan and the former judges that the appellate courts are the proper forum to address disagreements with a trial judge's opinions, errors, or mistakes. However, I do not agree that the case law supports that these judicial acts bar prosecution, where the indictment alleges that the acts were done corruptly or facilitate the violation of criminal law. All right. Footnote 1, Joseph appealed the district court's denial on judicial immunity grounds. The First Circuit Court dismissed the appeal, concluding that it lacked jurisdiction to review the district court's dismissal based on her asserted common law defense of judicial immunity. In U.S. v. Joseph, First Circuit 2022, as Dugan does here, Joseph argued that judicial immunity protected her against not just conviction, but against prosecution. The First Circuit disagreed, finding that judicial immunity, even assuming that it applies in this criminal case, does not provide a right not to be tried that can serve as a basis for interlocutory review. The court ultimately concluded that Joseph could not obtain interlocutory review of her judicial immunity defense unless she could show that her claimed right not to be tried was explicitly grounded in a statute or the Constitution, which she could not do, relying instead on common law. I mean, at bottom, the indictment does not charge Dugan for opining on the fly, managing her courtroom, or allowing someone to appear by Zoom for future hearings. There are no and there cannot be federal statutes criminalizing such conduct. Rather, the indictment charges Dugan with violating federal criminal laws by knowingly concealing EFR, a person for whose arrest warrant and process had been issued under the provisions of law of the U.S., and to prevent the discovery and arrest of EFR. Obstruction. After notice and knowledge of the fact that a warrant and process had been issued for the apprehension of EFR in violation of 18 U.S. Code Statute 107, and by 2, corruptly endeavoring to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper administration of the law, which a pending proceeding was being had before a department and agency of the United States, namely the administrative arrest of EFR for purposes of removal proceedings conducted by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in violation of 18 U.S. Code Statute 1505. This conclusion does not leave judges acting in their official capacities or judicial independence in the mercy of prosecutors. As the Ninth Circuit stated in Claiborne, Judges enjoy the same protections as ordinary citizens from vindictive prosecution. A prosecutor seeking to charge a judge of a criminal offense, if proceeding by criminal complaint, as was the case here, must satisfy the reviewing judge that there is probable cause a federal crime has been committed. Additionally, the prosecutor must then present his case to a grand jury as required by the Fifth Amendment. And ultimately, the prosecutor must prove each element of the charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury of 12 citizens. For these reasons above, I recommend that Dugan's motion to dismiss the indictment based on judicial immunity be denied. And King Bob, thank you for the one gifted Squid Pro Quo membership. I appreciate that. Hey, Alan. American jurisprudence, along with American politics, is flawed to a point beyond redemption. I say we burn it to the ground. Just kidding. I mean, you know. Yeah, when lawyers make laws to benefit lawyers, it's corrupt. And when Congress and our government allow people to break the law, and instead of changing the laws to make it easier for people to become citizens, but instead just go, okay, break the law, there's a problem. 10th Amendment. Next, Dugan argues that her prosecution violates the 10th Amendment separation of powers. This one I just found completely fucking ridiculous. The 10th Amendment provides that the powers not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. U.S. Constitution Amendment 10, the 10th Amendment restrains the power of Congress, but this limit is not derived from the text of the 10th Amendment itself, which is essentially a tautology. Instead, the 10th Amendment confirms that the power of the federal government is subject to limits that may, in a given instance, preserve the power of the states. New York v. U.S., 1992. Dugan argues that the federal government, through its executive branch, lacks the power to exact criminal punishment on a state court judge. This is where I laughed. Like, I just laughed. So if I crack up laughing, I apologize. I laughed at this because of how big our government has gotten. This either proves, to me, when I was reading this in the motion to dismiss, it either proved two things to me. One, she just proved that the government is too big, or she just proved that the government's too big. Like, I just, like, and while hiding behind judicial immunity again. Hey, Zohan. Like, yeah, that's what I'm having such a hard time with. Illegal people breaking the law and screaming unfair treatment. Yeah. Oh, and people waving the flag of the country that they are escaping. I never will get that one. Yeah, Ibarra was here illegally. As well as the 6 people who unalived Larisha Thompson, the 40-year-old woman, black woman at that, in South Carolina back in May. So, but where's Black Lives Matter on that one? I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for them to protest her death, because she was shot while at a stoplight in her car. By the way, just in case you didn't know. Dugan argues that the federal government, through its executive branch, lacks power to exact criminal punishment on a state court judge for, quote, doing in and near her state courtroom as the indictment contends. The crux of Dugan's argument is that prosecution under federal law effectively overrides the state of Wisconsin's ability to administer its courts, stating that the Constitution does not allow the federal government to superintend the administration and case-by-case daily functioning of its state courts, as this indictment proposes. In Joseph, The Massachusetts judge and her co-defendant, courtroom deputy, raised a similar 10th Amendment challenge. They argued that they were being charged for their lawful decision not to assist ICE in administering immigration laws, for the judge's decision regarding how to manage her courtroom, and for the deputy's exercise of his daily duties. The district court found that addressing these constitutional arguments require the assessment of disputed facts, characterizations of the events that underlie the indictment, or other evidentiary analysis. Such fact-laden determinations are outside the scope of a motion to dismiss. The same is true here. The indictment alleges Dugan violated two federal statutes, 18 U.S. Code Statute 1071 and 1505, and cites the respective statutory language for both. Whether Dugan violated these statutes that the government accuses, or whether she was merely performing her judicial duties as Dugan asserts, these are questions for a jury that cannot be resolved on a motion to dismiss. Additionally, the allegations that could be addressed or are better addressed by the state's own judicial discipline procedures does not, as a matter of constitutional law, require dismissal in the indictment. Footnote 2. For these reasons, I recommend Dugan's motion to dismiss on 10th Amendment grounds be denied. Constitutional avoidance doctrine. Finally, Dugan invokes the canon of constitutional avoidance to support dismissal of the indictment. Dugan's invocation of this canon, however, is misplaced. Constitutional avoidance is a canon of statutory construction that comes into play when the language of a statute is ambiguous. The canon is a tool for choosing between competing plausible interpretations of the statute. Warger v. Showers, 2014. It counsels courts to first ascertain whether a construction of the statute is fairly possible to allow avoidance of the constitutional question. Jennings v. Rodriguez, 2018. The canon has no application, however, in the absence of ambiguity. Dugan, and then the second footnote, in fact, Joseph's case was ultimately resolved with the government agreeing to drop the criminal case in exchange for Joseph's agreement to self-report to the state judicial discipline body. See Massachusetts judge faces new scrutiny for alleged role in immigration case. Available at courtscast.com. The website last visited July 7th, 2025. Dugan first invokes the canon to argue that the two statutes under which she is charged, 1071 and 1505, conflict with the Constitution based on the 10th Amendment argument she raises above and based on the intersection between judicial immunity, rooted in the common law, and Congress's enforcement of 242 against the state actors, including judges. She's basically arguing that the government's too big because you have conflicting statutes. I'm just like, y'all, you do realize that you were like, you're making an argument that the government's too big. Everything that you otherwise fight for. And as a judge, I should not know your politics. I should not know your politics as a judge. And it's sad that I do. Oh my goodness. She argues that the court can avoid constitutional questions by deciding the case on immunity grounds rather than addressing the 10th Amendment issue. Again, this is not how the canon of constitutional avoidance is used. I like this judge's phrasing. Again, that's not how this is done. It's not how any of this works. Dugan does not allege ambiguity in either statute that would require the court to consider a plausible interpretation in harmony with the Constitution. She is simply repackaging her 10th Amendment argument, which, for the reasons explained above, cannot be resolved on a motion to dismiss. So yes and no, in the sense of this statement. You can see our parties, our political parties have been so divisive or so polarized that you can see with what a judge says where their political parties fall. That's the sad part. It's not supposed to be what's best. What did Kennedy say? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It's not like that anymore. It's what can you give me? And what can I get that I don't have to work for? Like, maybe one day I can get stuff that I won't have to work for, but today is not that day. Like, I'm working under minimum wage here today. I think we've got a whole, like, 11 gifted memberships and a $10 super chat. So I've made, $15. So we're working on about minimum wage, a little less than minimum wage. So Dugan next invokes canon to argue court could easily and rightly construe 1071 and 1505 to avoid any constitutional concern. But Dugan does not raise any constitutional concerns with either statute. She argues that the indictment fails to allege that conduct constitutes concealment under 1071. This is not a constitutional issue. It's a factual issue to be resolved at trial. She further argues that the indictment fails to allege a proceeding within the meaning of 1505. The indictment alleges that Dugan interfered with the removal proceedings of the Department of Homeland Security. While she argues that such removal proceedings cannot, as a matter of law, constitute a proceeding for the purposes of the statute, once again, she's not arguing that the statute is ambiguous. Thus, neither of these questions invoke the use of the canon of constitutional avoidance. Dugan raises no questions of ambiguity in the statutes, and I see none to address. Thus, I recommend Dugan's motion to dismiss be denied as to grounds as well. It's way, way, way under minimum wage. Well, that's the thing. There's law and order, and then there's not. And unfortunately, law and order seems to be affiliated with one political party these days, which is sad. Politics and law in America works if you're rich and poor if you are definitely not. And the problem with that is because our legislature always adds new shit. They never take away laws. They never change laws. They add laws. So now you not only have the old statutes, but now you have new statutes. And for a pro se defendant, that is complicated. Even for a lawyer, that is complicated. So lawyers charge exorbitant fees because their work is hard. I'm not. Look. So I agree with you. I just don't think there's an easy way to solve that unless Congress actually goes through all the statutes and finds one. So say you have statute 1 and statute 300 that conflict. Getting rid of statute 1. So now statute 1 is no longer on the books, but they never do that shit. They never take shit away. They always add shit. I want to get a $50,000 grant to find out what would happen if I gave $25,000 to a YouTube streamer. How would that work out? We make criminals one of our citizens, one stupid law at a time. Yeah, that's. And the problem is we just never. There's too many regulations, and then when we do take stuff away, like love them or hate them, like Trump taking away regulations. Did you ever stop to think and actually look at what he might be deregulating? He might be taking away the absolute most stupid regulation that has been on the books since God knows when, and does not do anything to make life better. It just makes things harder and makes people criminals for no reason. Like, this is one of the things that, like, when you say deregulate, it's like, yes, what actually are you taking away? And what are you deregulating? And what red tape are you taking away? No one actually, yeah, yeah. Then there are laws that override the old laws. Well, the old law means nothing. Q NFA tax amounts starting January 2026. I would like, I don't know what I would do if I ever got a $500 super chat. Like, I just like when I get a rainbow kind of night. When I say rainbow kind of night, I mean a super chat of every color. That is, you know, how smart do you need to be to make sense of all this mess? You just need to have the ability to sit in front of a book and books and books and books. Do you ever wonder why? Look at Larry Foreman. Look at DUI guy. Do you ever wonder why he's got so many damn books in his background and like in the background of his office? Because he needs all of them. Like, he needs all of them. They're not there for show. He probably uses every single damn one of them, and probably only for one thing here, one thing there. But all that shit is written down. So I will be doing that, but if you tune into yesterday's stream, we go over all the cases of healthcare fraud that the government is prosecuting right now. And there is, for those of you who were here yesterday, for those of you that were here yesterday, you saw Medicaid fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicaid fraud. And this is not people on the front end of like people who should be working, because I do know that there are people that exist that should be working and aren't and are just, but like billing for things that they're not doing. Like when they're billing for things that for patients that are in their facilities and they're not. Their patients went back to the hospital for something, for procedures, and they're in the hospital for a day, but they're billing. So Medicaid fraud fucking exists. I see it every day. People are like, Medicaid fraud doesn't exist. We looked up yesterday, and almost half of those that we went through yesterday were Medicaid fraud, $10,000. Medicaid fraud, $5,000. Medicaid fraud, down to a specific like $1,370.36 or whatever it was. So, like, yeah, but it was like that when I was applied for unemployment and food stamps back when I first got out of the military. In the event that I needed them, you would have to, when you applied, you would have to every week let them know how many jobs you were applying for before you ever got anything. So it's not new. It's just being enforced. But Medicaid fraud does fucking exist. But I am going through the big beautiful bill, and I'm also going to record a video on the 10 pages of recession, the Kennedy video that I went over, the bill that he was talking about. I'm going to read through that. Probably going to do that right after this. So, and actually it does, because if you get people who can work and aren't, because I do know that there are people, I've seen them. I worked at a freaking hospital. I dealt with a lot of Medicare patients, and some of them literally told me that they don't take care of themselves so they can stay on Medicare. So I do know that they exist. They exist. Trust me, they exist. You make them work at least a little bit. You have to work 10 hours a week, let's just say. You're not only contributing to taxes, You're making people work for their benefits. You're getting people off that shouldn't be on there in the first place. You're cutting down on waste and giving it to the people, so it's really there for the people who actually need it. So, Alan, as much as I want to agree with you on some things, there are certain things that I've seen with my own damn eyes that I agree with getting rid of waste and fraud. And the people who tell me that waste and fraud don't exist, I was a government employee in the military. Waste and fraud are rampant in the military. And I worked for a healthcare facility with 700-bed hospital. Fucking fraud everywhere. Everywhere. Patients and doctors. All right. Factual disputes not properly resolved on motion to dismiss. In litigating this motion, the parties contest both facts alleged in the indictment and facts beyond what is alleged in the indictment. This, two counsels against dismissal. The court cannot resolve disputed questions of fact on a motion to dismiss. See Abrahamson. Feel like I've seen that case being cited in multiple different cases and motions to dismiss in multiple cases. For example, Dugan argues that the federal agents disrupted her courtroom on April 18th to effectuate the arrest, while the government asserts that evidence at trial will show the agents did not disrupt any proceedings. Rather, Dugan affirmatively chose to pause an unrelated case, leave her courtroom, interrupt a colleague's proceedings to get her assistance, and then confront the agents in a public hallway. Dugan, and I saw some footage that was showed on a local news station, and that's what they did. They were in a hallway. They never went into her courtroom as far as the footage showed. Dugan further argues that she had a right to make decisions involving her courtroom and cases, including a directive individuals to use a certain door, conducting a case off the record, and opining off the cuff on a legal issue, and the federal law enforcement agents improperly interfered with her right to make those decisions. The government, however, asserts that Dugan was not simply trying to run her courtroom, but intentionally misdirected the agents to the chief judge's office, knowing he was not there. Then escorted EFR into a non-public hallway with access to a stairwell leading to the courthouse exit to help him evade arrest. Dugan disputes the government's version of events, and the government will have the burden of proving its allegations beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. However, these contested facts cannot be resolved at this juncture. Two separate parties have filed or have moved for leave to file an amicus curiae brief. First motion was filed by former state and federal judges from across the U.S. These judges seek to file and they're all retired. Former state and federal. Former being the key word, because nobody who actually works now has the balls to step up, because they all know they're fucked if they do. Because they all know they're wrong. These judges seek to file an amicus brief in support of granting Dugan's motion to dismiss the indictment. The second motion was filed by the Centers for American Rights. This organization seeks to file an amicus brief in support of denial of Dugan's motion to dismiss. Both motions are granted, and I thank the amici for their time and contribution of the consideration of the important issues presented by this motion. Generally, because the amici are not parties to this case, they cannot raise issues advanced by the parties. See Kim and B. Kemper, Financial Services, 1991. We do not ordinarily address issues raised only by amici. Butler v. Daimler Trucks, 10th Circuit, 2023, finding that because an amicus is not a party, the court ordinarily declines to consider arguments raised only by an amicus. Fontes v. Gonzalez, First Circuit, 2007. We will not address an issue raised by an amicus that was not seasonably raised by a party to the case. Christopher M. by Lavetta McCall M. v. Corpus Christi Independent School District, 5th Circuit, 1991. Absent exceptional circumstances, an issue waived by an appellant cannot be raised in an amicus curiae. Thus, I have disregarded any challenges articulated by the amici that were not raised by either party. Conclusion, it is well established and undisputed that judges have absolute immunity from civil lawsuits for monetary damages when engaging in judicial acts. This, however, is not a civil case. I feel like her whole 37 pages could have been this. Just in review of the case law does not show an extension of this established doctrine to the criminal context. Accordingly, I recommend that Dugan's motion to dismiss the indictment on judicial immunity grounds be denied. I also recommend that the court declines her invitation to dismiss the indictment on 10th Amendment grounds on the canon of constitutional avoidance. Finally, it's important to note that nothing said here speaks to the merits of the allegations against Dugan. Dugan is presumed innocent, and innocent she remains unless and until the government proves the allegations against her beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury trial. Now, therefore, it is recommended that Dugan's motion to dismiss the indictment be denied. It's further ordered that the motions to file an amicus briefs be granted. The motion for supplemental jury questionnaire will be addressed by Judge Edelman. Your attention is directed to General 28 U.S. Code 636B1B and Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 59B or Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 72B. Hold on one second. Girl is Alan, this is not the time and the place for that. We are talking about immigration and Judge Dugan. I've mentioned that I'm going to make videos about that. I have made videos. You are free to go back and comment on them. But one thing that I ask is that we stay on topic because I get distracted enough on my own, let alone people talking about things that are off topic. I derail myself enough. So, yeah. But we are talking about before you start derailing, if you want to go to the medical fraud and waste that we did yesterday and comment, you are free to do so. We can have the discussion there. If you want to comment on the next fraud and abuse where I'm going through some of the things, like I'm going to go through each case. Beth Israel Hospital, I'm going to record that video today where we go through the 10-page settlement that they have. I'm also going to be doing some investigations on how when someone does do medical fraud, how that $14.6 billion in medical fraud that they uncovered, how that affects our healthcare. So I have facts. When people just come out with their opinion, but they don't have actual facts and numbers. I like facts, I like numbers, I like dates. I don't like opinions. Because opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them and they all stink. Yeah, stay on topic, please. It's hard for me to follow. Yeah, and this was 37 pages. This had to be broken up into two different sessions themselves because this was big. Like I said, I've never seen a judge write a 37-page response to a motion to dismiss. So it's your attention is directed to 28 U.S. Code 636B1B and Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure 59B, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 72B, if applicable, whereby written objections or any recommendations, order herein or part thereof may be filed within 14 days of the service of this recommendation or order. Objections are to be filed in accordance with the Eastern District of Wisconsin's electronic case procedures. Failure to a timely objection with the district court shall result in a waiver of a party's right to appeal. If no response or reply will be filed, please notify the court in writing. And that was Nancy Joseph. I have not looked at the docket for this since I looked at this particular. There was on the 9th is when I got this document from the 7th. There was a hearing, and they do have court minutes, but it's a very short document. But because this is Pacer and I pay for all these documents, these cases that are slow moving, we I don't check as often as I check like a what the hales case that is generally a little faster. And that's another reason why I'm only doing that case 3 days a week. One, to keep myself straight and from getting confused. Two, so I can keep going on all the other topics and court cases that I want to follow. And three, to save myself money. And I'm only checking every other day and not every day because shit gets expensive. So this was the court minutes that happened on the 9th. Defense will file objections to the recommendation by 7/17, which is Thursday. The government will respond in 14 days. Court will set a status hearing after it issues a ruling. Because this is federal and there are no cameras, court minutes are kind of all we have to go on. So it's kind of all we got. So on Thursday, there will be more. I will check on Thursday to see if there is anything there, and we will go from there. And Flash Fan's kind of like my king mod around here. So if how he manages the chat, it is what it is. But I have no problem with people talking about things in chat. Just try to stay on topic because y'all know that I derail myself enough, and then I have people bitching in the comment section that I derail myself and that I'm this and I'm that, and it's like, well, it's not helping. So, you know, so there is that. Let me change this. Close. So I did drop the first part of this this 37-page document in the description of the video. I also have a US v. Hannah Dugan playlist where I've dropped all the videos. I think it's only about 3 where I've talked about all of this. However, I will be doing more. We do have, yeah, Pacer bill is real. Pacer bill is 100 and it's not as much as it was last time. It was $145 this time. 145. Yeah. If it's on topic, by all means, healthy debate. But like we will just really quick go back over this is what I wanted to show you guys. I still have the document up. This is what I'm starting to go over. All of these. So these are all the court documents. So Alan, if you're still here, this is what we went over yesterday. When you start going down the list, these are all the people who are being indicted and or charged and or settled out of court for Medicare, Medicaid, and or just general healthcare fraud in relation to that and many other things. But you will see I'm going through because there are certain ones that are more, as I discussed yesterday, for those of you who are here, there's people who were distributing Schedule II controlled substances. Like there's like 25,000 Schedule II controlled substances. Like it's just but then you get down here and you get, and I need to copy and paste this and actually look. It gives you who's doing the who's being charged, what they're being charged for, and who's doing the who's prosecuting. But you will look, and it's like down here you get to, and you will see like drug controlled distributed prescription drugs illegally. And I'm separating out the front end stuff, like patient giving people drugs, false or doing unnecessary procedures and things that literally did upfront patient harm. And on the back end where you submitted claims or you were fraudulent or you home health care fraud, like it's like 1.9 home health care fraud, 1.9 million. Like it's yeah, Medicare fraud, Medicare paid approximately $230,000 based on these claims. Like and then another one, the same person, Dr. Mohammed Al-Shahabi, Medicare paid approximately $1.3 million based on these fraud claims. Like you get you get to a lot of stuff where it's like most of the Medicaid is in the state cases because obviously Medicaid is a state-run program. So when you get down to the state cases, if you want to look for the Medicaid stuff, and this is just what we're being charged, what people are being charged with, and what people know about, like giving one drug or writing false prescriptions. Grand theft, healthcare fraud, grand theft in connection with the home healthcare services. Let's see. Trying to find what we looked at yesterday. A nurse practitioner illegally possessing narcotic drugs, failing to make and furnish records is required by law. But here's let's see. Falsely billed Medicaid for personal in-home services. Medicaid program defrauded Medicaid of $17,334.72 through filing false claims for payment. Like Mass Health, which is Massachusetts version of Medicaid, $24,375. Like just false claims to Medicaid in connection with a scheme, billed services he did not render, totaling approximately $11,000. Like just Miller caused Medicaid to be billed for services she did not render, totaling $8,640. Like this shit adds up. Medicaid paid Carr $37,819.39 based on these false claims. Like, I don't know if any of y'all got a calculator right now, but this is just a handful of people that are being charged. These are not last year, the year before, things we don't know about, people that are defrauding Medicaid right now. So when people say Medicaid fraud doesn't exist, you're literally full of shit because people are being literally charged with it right now. Medicaid paid $5,124.50 based on these false and fraudulent claims. This is the shit that we need to get rid of. So when people say that Medicaid fraud, oh, you're trying to take shit away from people who don't, or poor people. No, we're trying to prevent people from frauding the government so we can actually give it to people who want it and need it. Like, there's a difference. Like Medicaid paid $27,710 based on false and fraudulent claims. Like, what do you think of bi-monthly, and if fraud and or abuse such as missing medications, large number of prescriptions for scheduled drugs is found, switching to semi-monthly audits? I am all for, but the thing about it is audits cost money too, because you're having to pay the auditors. So like there's no easy answer, and that's the problem. But to just say that, well, Trump made his money based on fraud. So we shouldn't get rid of any fraud because Trump made his money based on fraud. What the fuck does that make sense? One, prove that he made his money based on fraud. Find facts. And second, yeah. So, oh, and my Chrome is telling me it's time to go. So, I'm back. Chrome crashed. Chrome said, nope, not going to play anymore. Chrome literally went, no, hell no. Oh, Firefox and StreamYard don't get along. So, usually I do use Firefox, but they don't. Angel. They don't get along. So, I just have to make sure that I am not, because I have an echo. Oh, Patrick, thanks for the $20 super chat. Listen to me. Are you listening? Hit like and subscribe. Listen to her now. Have a great day, Squid. All right. On that note, it's been 2 hours. My internet is starting to do its mid-afternoon. The heat sucks, and I don't want to be here, kind of thing. So I will have to let you guys go. I think we are done for the day. I am looking into Beth Israel heart transplant program. I will be recording part of that video today, hopefully finishing it, hopefully editing it and getting it up tonight. I have to work tonight, longer hours than normal. That being said, with those cases, the ones that we discussed yesterday and found interesting, I'm going to, instead of doing a live stream and reading through, so you guys can pick and choose what you find interesting, I'm going to read some of the documents. Hi, beautiful. Wow. Read and record some of the. Wow, you want to say hi? Come here. I'm going to record and record some of the documents. Me reading some of the documents, whichever ones get the most views. That'll kind of be the ones that we start talking about a little bit more in depth and I do more research on. That'll be kind of be the way that we judge which ones we actually go in depth with and we try to follow from beginning to end, and hopefully get a result with, because that is the best way to do it. That way the algorithm helps me out because it likes recorded videos. So I'm working on trying to record videos more. Plus, you guys don't have to sit here and listen to a whole bunch of documents that you don't find interesting just to listen to the one or two that you might find interesting. So we will see which ones get the most traction, and based on the ones that get the most traction, those will be the ones we go through a little more. Just a heads up, tomorrow is the Wednesday What the Hails update. Combined, she printed a test page on the printer. Combined with tomorrow afternoon being the second part or the reading of the Air India crash. I said second part because I've literally read through the document already. I have thoughts, so we will definitely get into it. I hope to see you guys all there. Remember, like, subscribe, share this out so we can get. Yes, it is fun to have 100 people in chat, 200 people in chat. It is fun to have the streams with a lot of people, but I'm hoping to use the traction from those 200, 300 people in chat streams to talk about what is very important and healthcare fraud, judges acting crazy and hiding behind judicial immunity, our Congress not actually doing the jobs that they were hired for and voted in for, but yet bitching that we're horrible people for wanting to be able to pay our bills. So yeah, grift. I'm a horrible grifter, but people manage to call me a grifter all the time, so I might as well try. It triggers a couple people when I call myself a grifter. But I laugh when I call myself a grifter because I call it squid pro or grift pro quo because I'm really bad at it. But if I don't ask you to subscribe, then what am I doing as a YouTube host? Yeah. Oh wow. Squid has thoughts. Next, another opinion from a woman. If you ever want me to read, see, and here's where I grift, because if you ever want me to read another comment that looks like that, there will be a super chat attached. Just kidding. Who wants the grift? Squid wants the grift. Oh, guys, I did find somebody to possibly make me a an outro video or just a soundtrack to my outro video. If you don't follow this guy on TikTok, if you don't follow this guy on TikTok, you should. I'm gonna just play a second of his work, just to see. This is what he does. He is so good at that. So, like, I asked him if he could help me make like a 20 or 30 second track to my outro video. So, but on that note, I will see you guys on the next one. Hang out with me tomorrow. Look out for that video. Hopefully, I will be recording it today. The goal is to go get something to drink, go fold some laundry, fix my curtains and my shades because the little is destroying them right now. And we will get into it. Y'all have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.